And that's a great leadership lesson. Leaders anticipate.
Yeah.
So what you just did was you saw the wave coming and you anticipated and you provided a solution before the problem became a reality.
Yeah.
And God knows how many hundreds of thousands of dollars you saved your organization by doing that. Welcome to the Leaders in Tech podcast. I am your host, David Mancela. This podcast is dedicated to honor the leaders in technology that are changing this world for a better place by inspiring their teams to create technologies that will help other people live a better life. And what an amazing example today for our amazing guest, Jason Gherardini. Brother, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Jason, for the audience, can you tell me your full name? Where do you live and what do you do for a living?
Sure. I am Jason Gherardini. I am the Senior Vice President of IT for Sares Regis Group in Newport Beach, California. We are a multi-family third-party property management company, and we're also a commercial industrial real estate company. We're in 6 states. We like to call it Texas West. So 6 states, Texas West. The bulk of our portfolio is in California. And currently we manage right now 135 apartment communities across those 6 states, which is about 30,000 units. And we're also a buyer and a builder of those same markets of multifamily apartments and commercial industrial real estate. So a little bit of all of it on there.
That must keep you very busy.
It's busy. Third-party property management. The bulk of what keeps us busy is the third-party property management. We generally onboard. Past 3 years, we've been onboarding about 33 properties a year. So, and then we have properties that drop off of as well, right, due to sales or just change of management, items like that will cause property drop off. But pretty steady growth. And I've been with Sares Regis Group for 5 years here coming in July. Prior to that, I was with JF Shea, so Shea Homes, Shea Properties, Heavy Construction. I was with them for just under 12 years. And prior to that, I did a small stint at a software company for 6 years. And then prior to that, I was with Lincoln Property Company, Legacy Partners, who are also in our same real estate market. So, real estate with a mix of software.
That is fantastic. And that's what I said at the beginning of the podcast is that's what's true, right? Like your job directly impacts the lives of so many people by providing a decent place to live.
Yes.
And that wouldn't have happened if it wasn't in part for the contribution of you and your team, this is why I made this podcast. People think that technology is Facebook and Twitter and AI with ChatGPT and Netflix, and they forget that technology runs the economy now. And it doesn't happen automatically. You have to have leaders that build that technology, right? And implement it and maintain it.
Yes, definitely.
So Jason, let's look back on how you got so far in your career. Did you ever go to computer science school, or what did you do after high school?
I was a communications major in college, and I was doing a minor in computer science. But I actually got involved with computers in junior high. They taught basic programming, and then in high school, I could get out of biology by taking computer science. So I took Fortran programming in high school, and then when I went to junior college, it's kind of the same thing. They're like, hey, you could get your science waived if you take Fortran. I'm like, well, I took Fortran in high school, so I took Fortran in junior college as well. And then I always kept computer science classes as my electives. And when I got to San Francisco State, I was going to minor in it, but I figured my my 8-year BS was enough to, I didn't want to stay another semester to finish it, so I just called it quits. And then, when I graduated, I was still living in San Francisco, and I had a friend who called me. He said, "Hey, I'm working for this real estate company back down in Southern California. Do you want to move back down here and work in computers with me?" And he was working for Lincoln Property Company at the time, and they were just coming out of the real estate downturn in the 90s. So jumped on a plane, and my real estate career, my computer career started there.
That's incredible. So what was your first job after college? What did you do for the real estate company?
So I was brought on just as a junior tech. Like I said, they were just coming out of the that real estate downturn in the 90s and the recession. So I literally walked around and fixed computers with a screwdriver in hand, and something went on a computer. I would open it up, add memory, switch hard drives, reload software. We were on a Novell 312 network.
I remember that.
No data center. Everything was just everything was in-house at that office, and it was really weird, and it just blew up. That was in I believe I started there in 95, into 95, 96. And things took off from there. The real estate came back. We went into .com. It was very interesting. It was an interesting time. And then from there I ended up being an IT manager, managing their networks and their growth. There was a quick growth from 95 to 2000. They went from 56 users to 125 in our corporate office.
That's good. So you went into leadership fairly quickly in your career then.
Yeah. I went straight from there into manager. It went from being just two of us working with my boss and I working for who had a consultant that helped us out to, by the time I left, we had a team of 7 of us. Mm-hmm. And I ended up being the network manager, Novell certified, Novell 4 or 5 certified with GroupWise. And yeah.
Just to replace it a couple of years later with Microsoft TCP/IP networking, right?
Yes.
It's, I keep telling people, if you have the vocation to become an IT leader, you have to keep thinking about learning and applying your time, your free time on learning, because it never ends, right?
Yeah, it was very quick. We very quickly realized that Windows was growing, and it did not play well with Novell. So my Windows NT 4.0 certificate was the next certificate I got. So I became Windows certified in there as well.
Yeah, and it was like that. And it's funny because you were mentioning that the first thing that you did was learning how to program in BASIC and then Fortran. So I assume that you were more towards the software development side of things, not networking things.
No, I ended up not being. I even took C++ in college, but I just really kind of tied to the networking side. I got tied to that, but it really helped out because I ended up running all of IT and overseeing. I don't just oversee infrastructure; I oversee applications as well. Mm-hmm. So infrastructure, applications, security, cybersecurity, because they're two different models, right?
Yep.
And then when I moved to the software company in 2000, middle of 2000. Right before the .bomb, as it was collapsing, I went to a software company. I managed their CRM to start with, and then I ended up being the director of IT of that company before I left.
And that's beautiful. And that's the when I see senior vice presidents of technology like you, I see people with a lot of diversity of managing different technologies and different people in those technologies. So you started with computer languages at school, but then you jumped right into hardware and networking. But then you came back and started managing applications. And as you know, people think differently. As software developer, I remember when I was a senior architect, I hated when my family brought me their laptops and their computers saying, can you please fix this? I'm like, I'm not a hardware dude.
It really expands it when you go into it too. And that's what I found with applications and stuff too, because I kind of had having the background doing programming, in high school and in college. And I wasn't a big programmer, but it gave me that background to kind of get that, how the developers think and how they look at things. And if you were to ask one of my developers today, like what they thought of my code, they normally tell me, "Hey, Jason, you don't have to start coding that. Just give it to us, and we'll do it."
Yeah.
But it gives you a good insight into how they think and how they work. So that really worked out well for me.
No, which is fantastic for sure. And now you're doing everything under the roof, right? Why did you leave your real estate management job to jump into a software company?
I followed my boss. We were coming into, we just hit the big, Y2K, finished all those projects that we had. We had a big AS400 that sat in Dallas. Everybody was worried the world was going to shut down. So we finished those projects, and we kind of got into, we were expanding our areas, and he got recruited out to go work for a software company in Irvine called Vision Solutions. And they were an AS400 high availability company, but they ran their internal shop on Windows. Huh. So they were growing and trying to get, they were publicly traded on the South African market, but wanted to get publicly traded in the United States. And so they brought us in to handle the growth of the company and help them get settled. And they brought me in and said, "Hey, we'd like you to run our CRM environment," which was Siebel back then.
Siebel was the biggest, right? Yeah.
Siebel. And then it started from there, and it was really interested me. I'd never, taken over a CRM application. I'd always helped manage our ERP applications in real estate. So third-party property management, you end up working with a lot of whatever the owner wants to use to manage their software, right? We try to point them in one direction. So I managed a lot of applications, but never just directly a CRM. So it was a challenge. So.
Yeah, plus I think it's completely different, the environments, right? When you change different jobs as an IT leader, you come to realize that it's not the same as working for a real estate company than working for a software company. Like, it's completely different. The requirements are different. The pace is different, right?
Yeah. The biggest difference between working in real estate and working for a tech company is, in the real estate company, everybody's really excited and really happy when you help them out, and they want to help you. When you work for a tech company, everybody from the front desk all the way to the VP and president of marketing, they all want to let you know how to do your job, because they work for a tech company, and they're going to tell you how you should be doing your job. So quite the difference in your customer base. Yeah, quite
you're
the
right. And it's funny. I started my career as a software developer for the Board of Education. I had 2,000 teachers under my responsibility from the software side. So I was building technology for the teachers, and then I ended up also working for the school administration. So, I think it was like 400 or 500 schools. Like you said, right? I was their savior. Like, I was their, "Oh, David, thank you," and I always, because I was a kid and I came from a company that I almost bankrupted my first business. That's why I had to go get a job. Yeah. So I was so grateful to have a salary, because 2 years when I was running my own business, I was, instead of making money, I was paying money, and I was actually getting into debt every month, So every time my paycheck came, I was so thankful. So I just wanted to please people, thankful people also wants to, get other people thankful, right? And it was beautiful. Then my boss hired me out to his next job, which was a large telecommunications company. And I landed one of my first senior roles as an IT leader in the architecture team. So everybody that I worked with was in technology. everybody. I was leading the point of sale, the new point of sale system, and it was a, coast to coast implementation, like very, very expensive, millions of dollars at risk, vendors and, managing vendors and all this and that, and my internal teams. But I never saw the end user. So I'm like, I wish I had somebody that tell me thank you, because what I'm doing is changing their lives.
Yeah. The real estate industry is very, very thankful. When I started in the 90s in real estate, you could show somebody how to print and they were just like, they were amazed. They were like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. So really, really thoughtful, back then, I would say from the late 90s to the early 2000s, the real estate industry was really considered the technology ghetto, right? There was like, they're the last people to get any sort of technology, still using legacy AS400 systems and, down to that area. But it's really made quite the change in the last years. The real estate market now has become so technology savvy with the movement of, everything from, your home technology. We do self-guided tours now where somebody can go on site and use their phone, schedule their own self-guided tour, go see an apartment, get a set of codes that gets them into buildings, into apartments, chat bots, even ChatGPT now, they're thrown into technology. That's the big buzz that they're doing. And it's made quite the turnaround. So getting back into real estate, when I did that was kind of the mid step of all that in jumping into that in 2007, not with as much automation, but they were really getting themselves out of that stigmatism of being, the technology ghetto and really moving forward.
I know, and it's happening in every industry. Like I was talking with a senior IT leader. He's working for a bank now, but he used to run a farming business in technology. So he was telling me how farmers now is they are high-tech companies. Everything has sensors, GPS guided systems. The trucks and the tractors drive by themselves now, like self-managing tractors. So you see the fields being plowed and there is nobody there. Incredible, right?
Yeah, I really noticed the change when, when you started seeing the big movement where IT went from being a commercial product, right? You didn't have the internet at home, you had the internet at work, right? And when it went from being a consumer product as well as a commercial product, you really saw that jump, right? Because if you had a home, if you've got your home network, you could jump on everything, right? It's your own home network, you could add this stuff, door locks, whatever was coming, you could add that very quickly. Whereas being in commercial IT, right? I can't just move 3,600 users to a new platform, in one day. You've really got to line it up and think about it. What's the impact is due? So I think that's where you saw that big shift. And that was probably the big tip around for, in our real estate industry as well. Because, people started saying, well, I could have this stuff at home, right? I got this phone now, I could get on the internet, I could do all this stuff, where people really started pushing. And it was great because it really pushed IT to move ahead forward and quickly on our own. You have to get involved in this stuff. Stuff we normally wouldn't get involved in, we had to jump on because it quickly became part of what we do in IT.
And you are right. And I remember the year actually. So I opened my business, the one that I run now, ISU Corp. I opened it in 2005. Two things happened. Number one, the gratitude came back, because now I'm building software for companies like real estate, for example, and they were so grateful when we actually automate their workflows, or we fix a problem that they can fix, right? So the gratitude came back, which is good. But number two, I quickly realized when everything shifted, there is breakthroughs in technology that people don't realize. For me, I remember clearly when we jumped into a 5 meg connection, consistent connection at home and in the office. When you reached 5 megs, you could do video conferencing. You can do remote desktop connections. You could do stuff that we were able to do before, but it was very inefficient. Now it was streamlined. when I saw that, actually, when I started my own business, I realized I can have people working from home. And I'm like, this is going to revolutionize the world. Nobody saw it. When the pandemic hit, I just had a video conference with my team. I told them, business as usual. We're working from home already, because I started working from home in 2005 when we started the business.
Yeah, I've got two great stories on that. So one, when we were in the 90s, when we first rolled out the internet in your corporate office in Southern California, we set up a firewall, got a data line connected to the internet, and so we got the company connected to the internet. Right, no longer we're just on the wide area network, private wide area network. They could get out to the internet. And then about 3 months into it, there was an outage. So we had, somebody hit a pole, the line went out on the street, and they're like, we may have it up by the end of the day. And I remember this, the office manager walking down to our little IT area, going, when's the internet going to come back on? Because if the internet's down, we can't do our jobs. And I remember my boss.
3 months later.
Yeah, 3 months later. I never heard my boss pushing his chair back, and he turns around and he looks at her and goes, she goes, I don't know what we're going to do. He goes, what did you do 3 months ago? And she goes, excuse me? He goes, what did you do 3 months ago? Because we just turned this on. The internet's only been on for 3 months. So why don't you go back to your desk and think about what you did 3 months ago? And you could probably figure out how to do your job. And I was just like, oh, I was like, that was actually kind of genius. But how quickly people adapt and are like, I've got this technology. Now that I don't have it, I don't know if I can do my job. Reality was the wide area network was still up. It was just the internet connection went down. So, but they quickly.
What I told my kids? I told my kids, you want to be blessed and feel grateful for what you have as far as technology is concerned, that took leaders to build it. Go without your cell phone for 3 days and see what happens.
Yeah. Even with video conferencing, I got really lucky. We had, when the pandemic was just beginning to start, I was at RSA in San Francisco, the security conference in San Francisco. And it just kind of, during that conference, it kind of said, hey, this may come it became a topic that this may come into the United States, and it's starting to hit. And so when I got back from that conference, I kind of went to the company. I said, hey, we should roll out Microsoft Teams. And I said, I've had it in a pilot. I go, I really think we need to roll it out, because if we do go home, we really need this tool. So I rolled it out. I said, I'm going to start rolling it out now to everybody. So I rolled it out in 2 weeks, had it rolled out the company. We did lunch and learns. Microsoft actually came in and helped us out by running some trainings for us. I used my connections there. And so we rolled it out, and then another 2 weeks after we rolled it out, everybody was home. They sent everybody home. And it became the #1 tool for the company during the pandemic. We were on Teams calls twice a day during the pandemic, because being in the apartment industry, which is really the bulk of our operational business, it was a whole new game, right? We had people say, what do we do with the staff on site? If everybody's at home working, how do we lease apartments? So it was all hands on deck, and it ended up being, probably one of the most valuable tools we rolled out.
And that's a great leadership lesson. Leaders anticipate.
Yeah.
So what you just did was you saw the wave coming, and you anticipated, and you provided a solution before the problem became a reality.
Yeah.
And God knows how many hundreds of thousands of dollars you saved your organization by doing that.
Yeah, and luckily I had this, I had the support from the top down.
Yeah.
The presidents of our company and the CFO, they came to me, and we actually had pre-meetings with the company. We did small little. We took the corporate office in small bits, and not to be too big, because we wanted to, not have everybody in the same room. and we sat with everybody in the corporate office and said, hey, if this becomes, a reality where they do want us to send everybody home and work from home, here's how it's going to impact you guys, and here's what we're going to do. Everybody with the laptops will be able to take them home. Everybody who's got a desktop and doesn't have a computer at home, we're going to let you take home your desktops. So just be prepared for that. And, when it hit, we were prepared. We decided on Friday, and by Monday, we had 100% of the company, corporate office working from home. Incredible. So it was the leadership from the top coming to each of us, and me coming from the conference going, hey, these guys are really serious about this. They really think it's an impact. Because that was an international conference too. They actually had, they ended up with 12 people who were at that conference who were the first ones that got it over here, COVID. Yeah. I got notified like, hey, you visited a booth twice where 2 people came down. I was like,
but that this was so weird. I thought I wasn't going to get it, that I was invincible, because, when you get a little bit egocentric because you just work out and you eat well, you think you're autoimmune, and it's the worst stupid thing that you can think about.
Yeah.
I eventually found I never stopped going to conferences and stuff throughout the States, and I finally got it, and I almost died. I had to isolate for 17 days and I couldn't get up 2 stairs. I will get tired by going up 2 stairs.
Oh,
so I'm like, oh my God, I'm sorry, guys. I don't want to be proud anymore, What a humble lesson.
Yeah, I was lucky. I didn't get it until, probably about a year and a half into it. I actually got it after I was vaccinated. I was, one of those who was getting tired of being there, and I went to a rodeo in Washington with a lot of people, and then I ended up getting it. Once again, the humbling experience. I'm not getting it. I'm invincible. I can gargle with it. Yeah.
Tell me how do you move up in your career? I know that your first jump was your boss. Were you intentional on growing on your IT corporate ladder, trying to become a higher, more senior person on purpose, or how did that evolve?
Yeah, it really started with, the first company. I went from being a low tech, and then jumping to a manager. And then I followed my boss to the second company, and I became their CRM manager, basically their manager of business applications for that group. I really could see, and I kind of wanted to mold my career in that direction. And, my boss was, he had his master's, very highly intelligent. And I said, do you think I should go get my master's and because I want to take the next steps and become either, a director of IT or eventually a VP. And we talked about it, and he's like, I don't know. He goes, well, it would be valuable for you to do that, but I don't know if you need to do that. And then what ended up happening is when he left to go to the left the software company to go back into real estate with JF Shea. I actually stayed at the software company, and they promoted me to director of IT. They actually came to me and said, hey, we'd like you to take the director of IT position. And I didn't even have to apply for it. They just came to me and said, hey, you work so closely with your boss. We think it's the right move. We're not going to go out. We just want you to take that position and replace your position, which is really good because it really exposed me to, now I was in all the executive meetings. Even though I was a director, they had me in each of those. And that's where I really saw the impact and the direction I could change in the company with technology, and really figured out how to listen, right? The job of IT is to give your users the tools to do their job and to be successful. And that will make you successful. And that's one of the things my boss that I followed through 3 jobs taught me is like, we can't go at the beginning of the year and set our goals without talking to each of our departments who are our customers and find out what their goals are. We may have some goals that, upgrading software, doing security changes, but really the goals of to make the business successful was listening to them saying, all right, what are your goals and how can I align my goals with each department to make the company successful? So that's the first exposure I really had at that level when I was a director for, I believe I stayed for 6 months, and then my boss recruited me out and said, hey, you want to come work in real estate again? Which was great because it's that audience or that customer that's just, they're so grateful to have you there. They're willing to work for you. Being in the software industry was a little more cutthroat. One, everybody was technical, so everybody thought they could do your job. And that particular company, they lived quarter to quarter, right? That quarter to quarter numbers really made you, set everybody's goals. So it was really high stress from that standpoint. And then going back into real estate was just such a natural move for me back. So then I did a lateral move, went director to director over to Shea Properties, which is a child company of JF Shea. Mm-hmm. And then my boss, I was there for about 6 years with my boss. And then in 2012, he left to go work with Donahue Schreiber and be the CIO there. And Shea Properties went out to search for a new VP of IT. And I walked upstairs and they said, hey, we'd like you to help with this search for this new VP. And I said, I'm going to help you right out of the gate. I'm going to throw my hat in the ring, and I'd like to apply for this position. And they were a little surprised. They were like, oh, wow. They didn't think I was going to do that. And I met with, Peter Shea Jr., who oversaw JF Shea and all the executives. And they actually used an outside recruiter to make the final decision on the final three. And I made the final three, and then I ended up getting the position of VP of IT for Shea Properties. And that was my start of that career.
Another beautiful leadership lesson there, right?
Yeah.
You have to be bold, and you have to have faith to take your chances, right? So in your case, you knew you could actually perform that duty. You knew you were really ready for a VP position, but you didn't just sat there. In fact, they asked you to go get your boss, and you became your own boss. Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So for
they asked me to go get him. I just brought myself to the picture.
Exactly, and but they still did their job. Like they hired the agency, they tried to recruit externally, so they actually gave you a fair chance, but they didn't have any. You didn't have any advantages with them, right?
Yeah.
And that requires leadership. Leadership requires to take risks. It requires for you to be bold and also to have faith. Otherwise, you'd never move up.
Yeah, it was quite the turmoil getting that position. Within the first year of getting that VP of Shea Properties, JF Shea the parent company brought in a CIO. And then within 4 months of him being the CIO, he came down and took all of IT. So JSA has 7 companies. They have Shea Homes, Shea Heavy Construction, Shea Properties, a concrete pump company, a mortgage inn. So they have 7 companies. So he took all of IT and rolled it up to corporate. And so he basically came down and said, all right. And then he came down and met with me. And, within 2 weeks of meeting me, he's like, you're now the vice president of infrastructure for all of JF Shea.
Wow. Another promotion.
Well, it was a promotion. At first I didn't see it because it wasn't a choice, right? Because I kind of talked to HR. I'm like, well, what are my options here? And they're like, well, here's your options. You could take the job, or behind door number 2 is an empty box, a plant, and a set of Cobra forms. I'm like, oh, got it. I guess I'm your new VP of infrastructure. And it was kind of a weird transition, because I'm like, okay, well, I run all of applications for Shea Properties, which is, it's like a 500 user company. They use an ERP, they've got their own, a lot of their own stuff. So it's like, will you just kind of help manage that? And then we'll promote somebody within there to come in and run that. So it ended up being a disaster for Shea Properties because they basically lost their IT. And they brought 2 different people in to run the applications that ended up leaving because it was a weird reporting structure. And so I ended up managing that for another 3.5, 4 years, along with doing the infrastructure for that. And by the way, when the new CIO hit his 11-month mark, he left. So
he just came in, made a mess, and left.
I like to say he came in and scrambled eggs, and then he left. But they decided to keep that structure, and they promoted the new CIO within the corporate division, who was a great choice, and somebody who's been there for a long time and really good at communication and keeping the teams together during that transition. And it was great. I worked there under her for another, so I was there almost 12 years, so another 5-6 years under her. And it was really great. It was really nice. She kind of gave me the run, and she let me continue to operate with Shea Properties too, because they never really they got a couple good application fits in there to run, but they always came to me for direction and to help them out because I was very versed in that industry. So it worked out well. And it gave me, I hated it at first, it gave me exposure to a much bigger company, Shea Homes, their mortgage division. So it expanded my knowledge, everything from websites to different areas that we covered within that big group. It's a great experience.
Now you're dealing with billions of dollars, right? Like a billion-dollar corporation. And that's what it is. And isn't it amazing, though, that you just started, for the audience, this is possible, people, right? You started fixing computers and changing hard drives.
Yeah.
And now we're talking about this infrastructure where you have this umbrella of companies and all these souls, all these peoples that depend on you. If you make the right choice or wrong choice, you're going to mess up their life, or you're going to help them achieve their corporate goals, their personal goals too, by the way, right? Yeah,
I always, back when I first started in IT, there was always that big joke that for your IT department, you just throw some Twinkies and some soda pop under the door, and the guy back there will fix everything and keep you running. But my advice to people who want to grow within IT is communication, right? Communicate with your company and the operations, and expand your universe, because the more you know about what the business is doing, right, it'll carry over. Because if you do that in software, like I did at first, and then carry that over into real estate, it's all the same thing. It's keeping your customer happy, right? And, IT is a cost center, so you need to keep your customer happy, and you need to behave like an outsourced company, because if you don't, you're going to become an outsourced company within your environment. So I always treat it that way as well. As long as you communicate, keep expansive, work with the executives and your other peers in the department, you'll grow and expand your career. And don't pigeonhole yourself into like, oh, I'm just the guy that walks around and fixes computers. Get more involved. I always invite my team from, great story. When I came to Sares Regis Group, the lowest level, the technician, the kid they had running around plugging computers in, I met him, and he was highly intelligent. I was talking to him. He went to UCI, computer science degree, and he now is my manager of network applications.
Nice.
His salary has doubled, and now he has people reporting to him within my division, and he is great. He's a perfect example of what to do, and you have to do that. Even at a manager level, I always tell him, mentor the guys that work for you so they can be that next guy. When we're out in the parking lot and you push me in front of a bus and now they need a new VP, you could take that position and promote somebody else into your position. always keep your bases covered. And they laugh, and he really gets the value of it. people within my group. I have people within my group who get it and people that don't, right? Which is good, but because you always need those key team players who get stuff done. But I really look for people who, I want somebody to walk into my office and say, hey, I've got the opportunity to go be a director of IT at this company, and I've had this happen here. And I was like, you know what? This is going to sound weird, but I cannot give you that position right now. But if you really want to go after that position and go do that, I will be a reference for you to go do that. I'd hate to lose you, but I don't want to be a roadblock in your career. And if you could go do that, I want you to take that opportunity. And it's great. I've done that a few times, in between JF Shea and here, and it's great. And they've gotten jobs, and I still keep in touch with them, and they're really grateful. They'll still contact me for, hey, I'm doing this to get advice, but it's really good because I do the same thing with them. I'm like, hey, what are you guys doing over there for ABC? Right. And we share information. That's great.
And before you know, you become a community, and having that great attitude, right? And never burning bridges, but building people. For me, a true leader is the one that trains other leaders. Yeah. Because then you are creating a waterfall of blessings, right? And you create a community, and you never know who you're gonna work. You may be working with them in the future, like you have no idea.
Yeah. Right. They may be throwing me a bone one day. Say, hey. I'd like you to come work for me, which would be great. I'm perfectly fine with that. as long as there's a paycheck involved, I'm in.
Yes.
I can paycheck, and I can, work and have fun and make a difference. That's great. But yeah, that's the other thing. Training leaders, you're absolutely, training leaders is important, and keeping those relationships within it. One of the my network manager here at Sares Regis Group, he actually worked for me in the 90s at Lincoln Legacy in the 90s. So, and then he just contacted me out of the blue and said, hey, he used to be the VP in the court systems, and he retired, kind of went into retirement out of that. Because at 20 years, you can retire out of that. And so he kind of did that, but was bored, and he wanted to get back to work. And I'm like, well, all I've got is a network manager position. He's like, I'll take it. And it's great. He came right in, and having him in at that position, it really helps people out in the company because he's a leader, right? He's run a division, and it helps me out because I get to focus more time on, meeting with my peers at the executive level and finding out, what I need to do with my groups to make the company run.
That's amazing. What a beautiful story. Again, another amazing leadership lesson, right? A leader, it's very hard for a leader to retire because you need to keep adding value. Once you just start watching TV all day, you feel like your life has no purpose, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing worse than getting bored when you have so much to offer to the world.
Yeah, it's important to do that. And you see things and you grab value from it, right? When I started with Sares Regis Group 5 years ago, they were managing 65 communities, just under 17,000 units. We had about 635 employees. We now manage 135 communities. We have 30,000 units that we manage, and we're over 1,000 employees. I have added only one body to my team in that transition. And that's because I took a look at what the team was doing and got rid of the fat and became more productive, put in a lot of automation, to help us out and doing it. And it's really worked. It's been such a successful program for me that I'm working with other divisions to help them streamline their processes. So when we add properties, they don't have to continually add bodies to their group, right?
That's incredible.
It's looking
that creates better job security for everybody and more prosperity for the stakeholders. It's everybody wins, right?
Yeah. I mean, because in third-party property management, we could have one of our customers, an owner, come in that we manage 15 properties for and go, I'm giving you your 30-day notice, right? And then we've shrunk by 15 properties,
right?
And that's a big hit. And if you're a department that ramped up, to cover those, you've got some overhead, right? Yeah. That eats into what we, our big deal is we live off our management fees, and the biggest bite into our management fees is overhead, full-time overhead. So our full-time employee overhead. So you've got to watch that, and I'm very cautious of that. there's a flip side to it. I really make sure I take a pulse of my team and say, hey, if you guys are getting beat up and you have too much work, you got to let me know, and then we can talk about that stress level. And we got to that point, and that's when I added a body. But I did it strategically. He's 50% corporate and 50% multifamily.
Nice.
so those two divisions split that body, and we're able to cover that work.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Jason, thank you so much for your time. One last question before we finish the meeting. I don't want to overuse your time. If you had access to a billboard in front of the busiest highway on earth, what would you write in it?
Be efficient.
Be efficient. I think that was the theme of the whole interview. Efficiency. And you know what is IT? IT, the whole reason why we exist is to have the business be more efficient. Isn't that the bottom line?
It's the bottom line, just to be more efficient, right? Use the tools. Sometimes that's stepping back and looking at going, do we have too many tools? And it's all part of being efficient and streamlining what you do, what your team does, and how they help people. So be efficient. And that works in any industry, right? Whether you're a restaurant or if you're efficient, you're going to be on top of it.
For sure. Thank you so much, Jason. If people would like to ask you more questions, can they find you on LinkedIn?
Yes, I'm on LinkedIn under Jason Gherardini. I'm out there. I believe I sent you my LinkedIn.
Yes.
URL. I'll send you that. Yeah, they can ask me questions. I'm more than happy to answer.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Jason, thank you so much for your time. God bless you and have a beautiful rest of the week.
All right. Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you for tuning in to the Leaders in Tech podcast. Check in next week to keep learning how to use technology and leadership to change the game. See you next time.